What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Catch, Hook, and Shoot. Today is Sunday, April the 21st, 2019. I want to thank everybody for listening and subscribing on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you find your podcasts. And hope everybody's following on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. On all of those platforms, you can find the show at Catch, Hook, Shoot. And the email, if you ever want to shoot me any questions, comments, anything like that, is catchhookshoot@gmail.com. So let's see what's going on in the world of pro wrestling this week. First of all, some news about Ronda Rousey. There was a lot of speculation as far as would she be staying or going after WrestleMania. Word is now she suffered a broken hand in her match at WrestleMania. Some people said her hand was injured before the match because she had been, there were a couple of backstage pictures, things like that, showing her hand wrapped up in prior matches before WrestleMania, but apparently if the injury was pre-existing, it got worse, or could be a new injury, whatever it may be. Apparently, she's got a broken hand, is going to require surgery. The story is that she had that surgery, I guess, this past Tuesday, and she herself posted on Instagram that she's on what she's calling an impregnation vacation, which kind of confirms rumors of her taking time away to start a family. So, yeah, I guess there's outside chance she could be back for the Royal Rumble or possibly WrestleMania next year if she comes back at all. It's kind of up in the air. I guess it's really her decision as to whether or not she wants to go back to the WWE. Some news from NXT. Looks like Punishment Martinez is going to be getting a new name. Damian Priest apparently is the new name for Punishment Martinez. Apparently, is going to be a darker, more occult type character. Kind of sounds like a new version of possibly the Undertaker or something along those same lines. Which I think for Punishment Martinez, it's definitely a good fit. Damian Priest is a good name, and I know a lot of people take issue with WWE changing a lot of the guys' names, and it's really a case of WWE wants to own pretty much everything when it comes to their product. So that includes names, likenesses, things like that. And Damian Priest is a name that they can trademark for merchandise and things like that. And as far as Punishment Martinez goes, obviously he can retain that name in case he ever leaves WWE and goes back to work on independence or anything like that. So, it works out good for both parties. And like I said, Damian Priest is a cool name, unlike some other ones, which we'll get into a little bit later. But so yeah, it looks like when we see Punishment Martinez making his not really debut, but I guess re-debut on NXT TV, he's going to be known as Damian Priest with a little bit of a new gimmick. I've been seeing some vignettes on Raw and SmackDown the last couple weeks of I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a buzzard popping out of a box, and another one with showing a dollhouse and like a female look like ventriloquist doll sitting in a rocking chair, and these are all leading to the return of Bray Wyatt. Supposedly his character has been changed up a little bit. I'm not really sure what to think about these vignettes. They would be creepy if they weren't so hokey. I mean, the buzzard popping out of the box, and it's really kind of a comical, cartoonish type of puppet, or even I've called it, it looks like a Muppet or something like that. So we'll have to see what happens with Bray Wyatt when he comes back. Talking about the Wyatt family, Luke Harper announced on social media that he requested his release from WWE this past week. Was looking to move on to something new, and of course speculation was all over the place, AEW or Ring of Honor, going back to his Brody Lee name. But apparently that has all been squashed as of today. The report came out. Apparently WWE has denied that release. The story that's going around is it was denied because he announced on social media that he had requested his release. Now this is something kind of new for the WWE. I mean, there have been other wrestlers that have gone out and said, yes, I requested my release from WWE, and it eventually got granted. But it looks like they're kind of cracking down on that. They apparently don't want wrestlers just announcing, hey, I've requested my release from WWE. I can see maybe they use that as kind of like to put pressure on WWE to grant the release, making it more of a public thing. I really don't see anything wrong with saying, hey, I've requested my release, but there's obviously people online that have a problem with everything. They're saying, oh, he should be a man and stick to the contract he signed. Well, I agree with that to an extent, but when you're not being used and I mean, by all rights, he was cleared to come back from his injury a couple of months ago, and they kept him sitting on the sidelines because they had no creative direction for him at the moment. I mean, Eric Rowan came back and they put him with Daniel Bryan. He was put in a pretty prominent role there with the WWE champion. But as far as Harper, they had nothing for him, so he just kind of had to continue sitting on the sidelines. And I would imagine he's probably going to be doing the same thing until the contract runs out, which by all accounts will be in November. So I don't see the point of it on WWE's end to keep somebody under contract who doesn't want to be there. I mean, it seems, just from a financial standpoint, it seems stupid to me. You're going to continue paying out this guy's downside guarantee while he's not adding anything to the product. He's not bringing any money in. He's got, really no merchandise to speak of. So you're losing money by keeping him under contract, in my view. So I don't see why. I mean, it's not like it's your top guy. It's not like Roman Reigns requesting his release. It's, he's been used as a mid-card guy at best. It looked for a little while there he was going to get pushed a couple of times. He was former Intercontinental Champion. He and Rowan were tag team champions, but it just never panned out. There were injuries and things like that, and I don't understand why, if you're not getting a return on your investment, why not just cut ties and go your separate ways. But hey, that's WWE for you. That's kind of the way that they work. So Luke Harper, from what I can tell, is unless they start putting him in some type of storylines, getting him back on Raw and SmackDown, or even back in NXT, let the guy do something. So we'll have to see where he goes, if anywhere, from here, if he's going to be back on TV, or if they're just going to have him sit out his contract till November and just let him go at that time. Another individual who kind of played a little bit that he was leaving WWE on social media was Alexander Wolf, former member of Sanity. Now, of course, Sanity was broken up during the Superstar shakeup. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Alexander Wolf basically put a post up on social media saying, RIP Sanity and goodbye WWE and things like that. And, it apparently turned out to be a swerve, as he showed up at the NXT UK tapings in Glasgow this week. So looks like he's going to be, and this hasn't aired on television yet, but it's been all over social media, he's going to be aligning himself with Fabian Eichner, Marcel Bartel, and the new NXT UK champion, Walter. So it's an interesting little group that they've got going on there. I'll be curious to see what they're going to be doing going forward. Another kind of underutilized superstar is Dana Brooke, and she had some words for Sam Roberts on social media this week. Sam Roberts has, for those of you that aren't familiar with him, does the kickoff show panels for WWE pay-per-views, and apparently is now doing some commentary on the main event show, which is typically taped like before Raw and SmackDown goes on the air and things like that, and it airs on a WWE network. But he seems to be kind of playing the heel role, the heel commentator role, and had some not so kind words about Dana Brooke on main event during her match, and she fired back at him on social media. So it looks like they could be, positioning her for a bit of a sympathetic babyface type push, which I definitely wouldn't be opposed to. Dana Brooke is one who's severely underutilized by WWE, so it'd be a welcome change in the women's division for somebody new to get a little bit of a push and get put into the mix, possibly for a championship, or even just get a little bit of the spotlight on her, because Dana Brooke, in my opinion, very underrated and sorely underutilized. So it'll be hopefully good to see her in a little bit of a more prominent role. So getting into the Superstar shakeup here that took place this past week on Monday Night Raw, they picked up The Miz, Ricochet, Aleister Black, Cedric Alexander, Andrade, Rey Mysterio, The Usos, Naomi, Eric Young from Sanity. So that's what caused the breakup of Sanity. Lacey Evans officially is with Monday Night Raw. EC3, AJ Styles, and also supposedly Samoa Joe. Now, Joe wasn't on TV at all this past week. From what I read, he was ill with the flu, is what it sounded like. So expect him to be making his debut on Raw probably tomorrow. On the SmackDown side, they picked up Finn Balor. Apparently, Lars Sullivan. Lars Sullivan appeared on both shows, so it wasn't real clear right off the bat where he was going to be. But I guess the last word, it's going to be SmackDown. Ember Moon, Bayley, Kairi Sane, who debuted with Asuka as the new tag team that Paige was debuting to go against the Iconics. Also, Buddy Murphy, Elias, and the big news for SmackDown was Roman Reigns came out and gave a Superman punch to Vince McMahon. Apparently, there's going to be some quote-unquote repercussions to happen this week, so it should be an interesting SmackDown. Now, one that I didn't mention yet, and I was saving this one for last, was an acquisition by Raw, which was the War Raiders, Hanson and Rowe, and this has been all over social media this past week. Because their name was changed, both their tag team name and their individual names. They're no longer the War Raiders. They are now called the Viking Experience. I'm not a fan of the name. I understand wanting to change it, wanting it to be a unique name. Again, as I said, like with Punishment Martinez, WWE wants to be able to copyright and own the names of all of their talent, obviously for merchandising purposes and things like that. The individual names that they changed Hanson Rowe to is Ivar and Eric. Those aren't horrible. They have the whole Viking sound to them, the Scandinavian sound and things like that. That's fine. But the team name, the Viking Experience, it's really just kind of. I said it on social media. It sounds like a ride at Disneyland or at Epcot or something like that. I get not wanting to use the name War Raiders on the main roster. Same reason that Raw is not called Raw is War or the War Zone anymore. They don't like the word war. Apparently, Vince McMahon wasn't a fan of the name War Raiders to begin with, and so he wanted it changed. Now they couldn't use just the Raiders, obviously, because that's an NFL trademark. Same thing with Vikings; they couldn't just call them the Vikings because that's an NFL trademark as well. So they went with Viking Experience, and there was a rumor online that I read that the original name that they wanted to go with was the Berserkers, which I would have been fine with. I think that's a much better name than the Viking Experience. I think it conveys the right message as far as the team goes, the individuals in the team. But of course, some of you guys would probably remember back in the 90s, there was a singles wrestler called the Berserker. It was John Nord, who prior to that was known as the Barbarian in the AWA. So that could be why they chose not to go with the Berserkers for the tag team name. But I don't know, the Viking Experience is just kind of. I think, had they put a little more thought into it, I mean, apparently this was done the day of Raw. Like, this was just decided on Monday. But, I mean, had they put some more thought into it, I think they could have come up with something unique that could be trademarked that, didn't sound like an amusement park ride. I mean, I think I threw out a couple suggestions on social media. I mean, the Berserkers would have been good. I don't think too many people remember John Nord. Not that he was a bad wrestler, but, in WWE, he really, I mean, he had a bit of a feud with The Undertaker briefly, but beyond that, he was more of a mid-card, enhancement guy. So I think they could have gone with the Berserkers and gotten away with it with much less backlash than the Viking Experience. But I mean, there's a lot of different directions they could have gone to keep with the Viking type theme, with the the Scandinavian type feel to it. Like I think some of the names I threw out were like Valhalla Rising would have been a cool name, or even Ragnarok, which is the Scandinavian Nordic Viking word for the end of the world. I think would have been pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure Ragnarok is something that they could have trademarked, especially if they would have played around with the spelling. I mean, of course, there was a Marvel movie called Thor Ragnarok, but that's exactly what it was. It wasn't just Ragnarok; it was Thor Ragnarok. So I don't think there would have been any copyright issues there. But Viking Experience is what we got, and apparently that's what the WWE is sticking with, even after all the backlash. So best we can hope for is that they can that the team can rise above the name. I mean, obviously their record speaks for itself. They're one of the top tag teams in the world, prior to debuting in NXT. So I think we can probably look for them to be dropping those NXT tag team titles sometime soon, unfortunately, if they're going to be full-time on Raw. So we'll have to see where we go with this. I mean, hopefully they stay the same, style of team. I'm sure they're going to have them dial it back a little bit, for for the more mainstream audience on Raw, but hopefully the core of what makes up the War Raiders still stays there, and they're able to, as I said, rise above the name, because the name Viking Experience to me is just horrible. I mean, the name in and of itself is terrible. So we'll have to see how that goes. Some news on the NXT side. It was announced on NXT this week that Kushida is going to be making his NXT debut in 2 weeks, so I know a lot of people very excited about that. He signed his NXT contract over WrestleMania weekend just a couple weeks ago. So, I'm hoping, I'm sure in NXT he's going to have a great run. I'm just hoping, if and when he gets to the main roster, he doesn't suffer from the same type of misuse, I guess is the best word, as like a Shinsuke Nakamura or Asuka or other Japanese stars that have come through the WWE throughout the years. I mean, you can go back as far as somebody like Hakushi, for those of you that remember him. I mean, in Japan, he was a top guy, had some great matches in ECW way back when, but as far as WWE goes, as Hakushi, he really never really got over, never took off. So hopefully with Kushida, we'll see. Hopefully the same thing doesn't happen with him, but time will tell. Some interesting news on Impact. We saw Lance Storm make an appearance backstage with in a segment with a little bit of a screaming match between Scott D'Amore and Brian Cage, and Lance Storm was named as the special referee for Johnny Impact versus Brian Cage for the Impact title at Rebellion, which is their pay-per-view coming up on April the 28th. So that should be pretty interesting. I know I talked about last week, Johnny Impact has the head Impact official Johnny Bravo in his pocket now. Bravo helped Impact win his match last week, so they had to go out and find a special guest referee, and it looks like that's going to be Lance Storm. Some big news on the AEW front was announced yesterday. Cody Rhodes' opponent for Double or Nothing will be his brother, Dustin Rhodes. And Dustin announced today on his social media accounts that he has been granted his release from WWE, and that Goldust, obviously, which is a WWE property, Goldust is no more. So it'll be Dustin Rhodes versus Cody Rhodes at Double or Nothing. Some other interesting news from AEW. Cody Rhodes was on Jim Ross's podcast this week, and he made mention that they're on what he's calling a hoss hunt. Now, what he means by that is they're out looking for some big guys. A lot of the people that they've signed would probably be considered more along the lines of cruiserweights, things like that. They don't have too many big heavyweight type guys as of right now. They've got a few, but so he says they're on what he's calling a quote unquote hoss hunt for some bigger guys, like over 6'2", 250 plus, whatever it might be. One of the guys they're looking at, interestingly enough, is Michael Wardlow, who I know you guys have heard me talk about Warrior Wrestling a few times on the show, and coming up on May 12th, where Catch Hook and Shoot will be part of the Fan Fest prior to the wrestling show. But on that show, Brian Cage will be defending the Warrior Wrestling Championship against Wardlow. At the prior Warrior Wrestling event, Warrior Wrestling 4, Wardlow faced off against Moose and actually was victorious against Moose. That's how he earned the championship match. So Wardlow definitely one to watch, and if he does end up signing with AEW, that'd be, I think, a great pickup for them. He's a great young star, and he's got definitely got a great upside. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. So let's get back into what I started last week, which is running down my list of the top 50 women of all time in pro wrestling. I'll run down 50 to 26 really quick here, just to kind of refresh everybody's memory. Starting at number 50, we've got Miss Elizabeth. 49, we've got the Jumping Bomb Angels. Yes, I know that's 2, but I wanted to get the tag team in there because women's wrestling hasn't been really taken seriously, up until the last decade or so. And women's tag team wrestling, even less than that. So, I wanted to definitely make mention of the Jumping Bomb Angels. So that was number 49. Number 48, Velvet McIntyre. And we've got Leilani Kai, Judy Martin, June Byers, Judy Grable, Mildred Burke, Brie Bella, Nikki Bella, Daphne, the Scream Queen, Caitlyn, Sasha Banks, Bailey, Jordan Grace, Tessa Blanchard, Taya, Mercedes Martinez, Santana Garrett, Mako Satomura, Akira Hokuto, Bull Nakano, Aja Kong, ODB, and number 26 was Velvet Sky. So starting with number 25 this week, I've got Angelina Love, multiple-time Impact champion, Impact women's tag team champion, and just really one of the core parts of the what I'd call the knockout originals for Impact. The beautiful people were kind of at the center of that whole division for a long time. That division was built around the beautiful people and Gail Kim and ODB and Victoria and a few others. So, definitely deserves a place on this list. Same as the next person on this list, Madison Rayne, who just recently re-debuted in Impact after a stint in Ring of Honor. Again, multiple time knockouts champion, and still going strong. And she's been in the game for a lot of years. All these women have in the beautiful people, and of course Angelina and Velvet just made their Ring of Honor debut with their new group called Allure. So we'll have to see. Looks like Ring of Honor is trying to build their women's division up, which is always a good thing. Next, at number 23, I've got Jacqueline, Miss Jackie, Miss Texas. Been around in the business for a very long time, and she's been through WCW, ECW, WWE, the USWA. She's been all over, been through the territory system, and just a veteran in the business. She's a Hall of Famer, and deserves every accolade that she gets. She's definitely one of the all-time greats. Next on my list is current Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion is Becky Lynch. Now, I'm thinking a lot of people are probably going to roll their eyes that, she's even on this list. But, that seems to kind of be a trend lately. The fans will kind of clamor for somebody to get a push, quote unquote, and, get a better spot and things like that. And then when they finally get it, it seems like the fans turn on them. So I have to say I agree with Daniel Bryan to a certain extent. The wrestling fans are very, very fickle, but it is what it is. But yeah, Becky Lynch definitely, to me, has earned her spot on this. A huge part of the WWE Women's Revolution, getting women's wrestling pushed to the forefront and taken much more seriously than it ever has been in the past, as did the next woman on the list, which is Asuka. As far as in-ring skill, I honestly think that Asuka is the best that WWE has right now. It's just she's kind of fallen victim to the same kind of thing as I was saying earlier, Shinsuke Nakamura, and I think it has to do with the language barrier, not so much with the fans having an issue with it, because the fans love Asuka, they love Nakamura. I think it's Vince McMahon that has an issue with it, because in NXT they excelled and they were over like nobody's business, but they get to the main roster and they just kind of fall by the wayside. And I don't understand what the disconnect is, because the fans are there. The fans are definitely behind Asuka. There was a huge backlash when she lost the SmackDown Women's title to Becky Lynch, or to Charlotte, excuse me. And but I hopefully now, with her being in a tag team with Kairi Sane, who is another hugely popular Japanese star, and the two of them together, I think, will work very well. Hopefully, at some point, maybe we'll see Io Shirai come up and be part of that group as well. But I would love to see Asuka get another singles push at some point. But as a tag team right now, as long as she's put in a good position where she can shine and hopefully get a good championship run, I'm hoping that they're going to do some good with her in the very near future. Next on my list is AJ Lee, longest reigning Divas champion she held that record for quite a while till it was broken by Nikki Bella. But she's one that really kind of went against the grain. She wasn't the cookie cutter, supermodel type. She had more kind of a punkish type look, and she had that quote unquote crazy gimmick, which just definitely just worked for her, and she played it very well, and she was the general manager of Raw for a while, and just yeah, I mean one of the more popular female superstars at a time, prior to women's wrestling getting to the point that it's at now, and she definitely helped to elevate the women's roster because in the ring she's another one who is absolutely great, as is the next person on my list, Paige, who unfortunately had to retire last year, way before her time, sadly. But obviously because of some spinal issues that she has, that's something you can't mess around with. So. But Paige was another one that really kind of went against the grain. She didn't fit the mold of what a WWE diva typically was, and that's kind of what earned her the name the anti diva. And she was the first ever NXT Women's Champion, held the NXT and Divas Championship simultaneously. I believe she was the youngest Divas Champion of all time. I want to say she was only 20 years old when she won that championship the night after WrestleMania, took it from AJ Lee, and is still around WWE today, obviously acting as a manager for Asuka and Kairi Sane, which I think is good. If the issue with some of the Japanese stars is the language barrier, that they're not able to, cut really good promos, put them with a manager, somebody like Paige. Paige can do, Paige can still go out there and cut promos for them. So, I think it's a good fit, and it's a way to keep Paige relevant, keep her on TV, which I know the fans are very happy about. So, I'm liking where that whole unit is going with Paige and Asuka and Kairi Sane. Next up, we've got Molly Holly. Started off in WCW as part of the Macho Man Randy Savage's entourage. She was known as Miss Madness or Mona Madness, and kind of under the wing of Medusa, another one of the all-time greats. We'll get to her in a minute here, but moved on to WWE, became Molly Holly. She was partnered with obviously Crash and Hardcore Holly for a little while. Then she was partnered with Hurricane, and just had a great career. And she was another one, in a time of the divas and the bra and panties matches and things like that. She's one that had a lot of wrestling skill and could put on a good match, and did the best she could with what she was given at the time. Next up, we've got Natalya, probably one of the best ever as far as technical in-ring skill. Obviously, she comes from the Hart family, the only female graduate of the Hart Dungeon. She's been women's champion, divas champion, and she's been in WWE for a long time. And I think she's one that is just kind of taken for granted and sorely underrated as well. Because if she had been positioned properly, I think she could have been the female Bret Hart. She could have held that women's title for a very long time, and she could have been. She's one, I think she works much better as a heel than a babyface, and she could have been that long-time heel champion that just nobody could get the title off of, and they could have done a lot with that. But she's still around, still going strong, still in the mix. So. Natalya Neidhart definitely has earned a spot in the top women of all time. Next, one of the all-time greats, in my opinion, is Mae Young, former NWA Women's United States Champion. She's a Hall of Famer, involved in WWE well into her 80s. She was still taking bumps and just doing anything and everything out there, and just even if not for her in-ring work, but just for sheer entertainment for the stuff that she did with WWE, she's definitely earned a spot on this list as far as I'm concerned. Next up is Wendi Richter, former WWE Women's Champion, also was a part of, I don't know if you guys remember, there was used to be a group called POW, Powerful Women of Wrestling, that was kind of the successor of Glow. When Glow went off the air, that was kind of David McLean's next organization, was Powerful Women of Wrestling. Wendi Richter was involved with that as a commentator. I can't remember if she ever actually did any wrestling, but she was involved in that. She was wrestled in the AWA. She was on the very first WrestleMania. Big part of the Rock and Wrestling connection with Cyndi Lauper, Hall of Famer, and just, again, an all-time great, way ahead of her time. Did a lot to elevate women's wrestling at a time when it was not a priority at all, or at all taken seriously. Next is Jazz, current NWA World Women's Champion. She's another one who's been through WWE and ECW, and Yeah, another one that I think is just sorely underrated. Just kind of flew under the radar a little bit. I don't. She never got that real big push in WWE. And again, I think it's at that time because she didn't look like Trish or Stacy Keibler or Tori or anything like that. But she wasn't the cookie cutter supermodel type, but she could get in that ring and she could go, and that honestly isn't that what it should be about when we're talking about wrestlers here. I mean, we're not talking about swimsuit competitions or anything like that. We're talking about wrestling, and Jazz is a wrestler and a damn good one at that. Again, she's in her I want to say mid to late 40s, and she's still going strong. Like I said, current NWA World Women's Champion has stated that she wants a shot at the 10 pounds of gold at the NWA World Title. So we'll see if Billy Corgan's looking to have any kind of intergender match between his women's and men's world champions. Next on my list, another one I think a lot of people are probably going to roll their eyes at, but you really can't deny what this woman can do in the ring, on the mic, on the ropes, and that is Charlotte Flair. She's been in WWE for 7 years, has definitely earned everything that she's gotten, and she's been NXT Women's Champion, she's been Raw Women's Champion, SmackDown Women's Champion, she's been the Divas Champion, she's done pretty much everything there is to do with the exception of holding the Women's Tag Team titles, which I'm sure will happen for her at some point or another. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to the women's evolution and in WWE, and who is at the forefront of that, who is the leader of that. Becky may be the champion, but Charlotte, when it comes to the women, is the top woman in WWE right now, like it or not. Next, we've got Beth Phoenix, another Hall of Famer, former Divas champion, women's champion. Again, was part of that group that kind of went against the grain, didn't fit that. Didn't fit the mold of the supermodel type. She was a wrestler and a very good wrestler. Has recently come out of retirement. Took part in WrestleMania. Looks like she has not lost a step. And apparently, from what I've been reading online, she's going to be doing some more matches for WWE. So good on her. Great to see her making a comeback and being a part of everything that's going on with women's wrestling in WWE now. And have Edge stay home with the kids for a little while. And next up on my list now, brand new WWE Hall of Famer, much deserved, definitely an innovator, trailblazer, groundbreaker, whatever you want to call her, is Chyna. Former Intercontinental Champion, Women's Champion WWE, part of D-Generation X, one of the most popular groups in history. I mean, despite everything that happened the last few years of her life, you can't take away what she did in WWE for for women's wrestling in general. So yeah, Chyna definitely is a part of this list and very high on this list. Next is Awesome Kong. She's another one that the Impact Knockouts division was kind of built around. Had a very brief run in WWE as Karma. Things just didn't work out, for her on that front, and so she wasn't around for very long. But as Awesome Kong in Impact Wrestling, she was it for quite a while. Held the Impact Knockouts Championship. Had a great rivalry with Gail Kim. They had some amazing matches together. So if you have not had a chance to see any of those, do yourself a favor, go out of your way to check out Awesome Kong versus Gail Kim. They had numerous matches in Impact for the Knockouts Championship, and every one of them was great. Next on my list is Victoria, another one who has spent some time in WWE, in Impact, has been champion in both companies, and again, went against the grain of what a diva was, because she could get in that ring and she could go, and that, she wasn't, again, she did the best she could with what she was given at that time. The women weren't taken too seriously in those days, but she's one that I think her gimmick originally in WWE, where she was kind of the unstable, kind of, I don't know if psychotic's the right word, but that was kind of her thing when she first started off in WWE. And but once you got past that, she is a tremendous athlete and just an amazing person. I've had the honor of meeting Lisa Marie, her real name obviously known as Victoria in WWE, and Tara in TNA Impact. But her real name is Lisa Marie Verone. I've had the pleasure of meeting her a couple of times, and she is just an amazing human being, inside and out, and definitely has earned her spot on this list. Next up, we've got Ivory. Another one spent a significant amount of time in WWE. She's a Hall of Famer. I don't know if a lot of people know, or maybe it's just not talked about a whole lot, but I mean, it's not a secret. She started off as part of the original Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. Her name in that was Tina Ferrari. After that, moved on to David McLean's next company that I talked about earlier, which is Powerful Women of Wrestling. And there was a little bit of a partnership with the AWA that was part of that. POW was part of Super Clash 3 with the AWA, which was their first foray into pay-per-view. Wasn't a great success, but it is on the WWE Network if you want to check it out. See some very, very early Ivory stuff. But yeah, again, former women's champion in WWE, and just did absolutely the best she could with what the women were being given at that time. Next up, we've got Sherry Martel, Sensational Sherry from WWE, Hall of Famer, women's champion again. She has been part of WWE, WCW, ECW, the AWA. She's been everywhere, done everything. Was an AWA women's champion, was a WWE women's champion. WCW, she managed Ric Flair. She's managed Macho Man Randy Savage in WWE. So, I mean, as a manager, valet, wrestler, she's done everything that there is to do, and you're not going to find too many better in the history of women's wrestling than Sherry Martel. Next up, we've got Medusa, also known as Alundra Blaze in WWE, former WWE Women's Champion. Obviously was part of WCW as well as ECW for a little bit there, and the AWA, same as Sherry Martel, kind of made the rounds as much as she could. Spend time in Japan. As far as wrestling goes, maybe one of the absolute best in-ring workers of all time in Medusa. Next, we're getting into our top 5 here. At number 5, I've got Mickie James, still going strong in WWE. Will definitely be a Hall of Famer once she decides to retire. And not at the top of the women's division right now. You don't see her in the title picture too much, but I think she's taking on more of a kind of a mentoring role. She's another one spent time in Impact, former Impact champion. She's been a Divas champion, women's champion, and has earned everything that she has gotten in the wrestling business, and as I said, is still going strong. Her husband, of course, is Nick Aldis, current NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and she's a wife, she's a mom, she's a country singer, she's a wrestler. She is a superwoman, so she has earned her spot at number 5 on this list. Number 4, to me, one of the absolute greatest in the ring, on the microphone, and just sorely underused and underappreciated in WWE, and that's Gail Kim. Made a phenomenal career for herself in Impact, is an Impact Hall of Famer, multiple-time Impact Knockouts champion, has been WWE Women's Champion, had 2 runs in WWE, wasn't, like I said, was not really used the best that she could have been. But it is what it is. I mean, she made her career outside of the WWE and has become, like I said, one of the all-time greats. And I will argue that with anybody. I don't care what company she worked for. She is one of the absolute best in the ring, on the mic. Whatever you ask of her, she's going to give you more than what you could possibly hope for. Number 3 on my list is Lita. Obviously was the manager of the Hardy Boys for a long time. Started off as manager for S.A. Rios. Spent some time in ECW as I think it was Miss Congeniality, if I remember right, as a manager there. Spent extensive time in Mexico training wrestling, and has been WWE Women's Champion, and just really. As far as like the high-flying lucha type style, you don't see that out of too many women, or at least you didn't at that time, and so she was really an innovator as far as that goes. And Hall of Famer, like I said, number 3 greatest of all time in my opinion. Remember, that is exactly what this all is, folks. It's my opinion. I'm not saying this is a definitive list and that everybody should agree. If you think some of these people don't belong, or if you think I'm putting people higher or lower than they should be, hey, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion just as much as I'm entitled to mine. So don't take it too seriously. This is just my own personal opinion of who the absolute best are in the history of women's wrestling. Moving on to number two, kind of has become a controversial figure the last couple of years, and that's the fabulous Moolah. Um, Moolah literally owned the Women's World Championship for 50 plus years, was the NWA World Women's Champion, bought that championship from the NWA board and took it with her to WWF at the time, and by their records was champion, I want to say 26, 28 years, something like that. Now that was interrupted, but some of those title changes are not recognized. So by WWE's history, she was champion for 28 years. By her own reckoning from an interview that she did many years ago, was that she held that title for like 50 plus years from the time that she first won it until till she died, basically, if you listen to her. So the controversy with Moolah that's come out is that she wasn't the greatest to the women that she trained, and that's putting it mildly. I'm not going to get into all the rumor and everything that's going on, or that has gone on about her, and things that she would do to her trainees and people that she managed. But the thing about rumors like that is there's no way to confirm it at this point. Anybody who was there pretty much has passed away at this point. So there, and anybody who is still around has basically been discredited one way or another, or has not pursued it. So there's really no way of confirming one way or the other if any of this stuff is true. But if it is true, then that's horrible. That's no way to treat people if any of that stuff actually happened. But again, we can't confirm it. It's just rumor and innuendo at this point. But because it is just rumor, that's why, like I said, I am putting Fabulous Moolah at number two. Number one on my list, the greatest of all time, in my opinion, is Trish Stratus. Record-breaking women's champion, Hall of Famer. Started off as a valet for Albert and Test, and just put in the work, put in the time, learned the craft, and became one of the best in-ring performers that WWE has ever seen. I think took a lot of people by surprise. I don't think too many people, when Trish first came in, expected her to be probably the best women's wrestler that the WWE has ever seen, but that's exactly what she turned into, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions. So yes, the greatest of all time for me, number one, is Trish Stratus. So that's all I've got for this week. Hope you've enjoyed the top 50 list. Now the next top 50 I'm going to be doing is the top 50 tag teams of all time. I haven't got that list completely put together and sorted yet, but that'll be coming in the next few weeks. And don't forget, as I announced last week on the show, coming up on Sunday, May the 12th, on Mother's Day, at Marian Catholic High School here in the south suburbs of Chicago, Warrior Wrestling 5. I will be there recording the show at their Fan Fest. Starts at noon, and the wrestling show starts at 2 o'clock. But the Fan Fest, you can come out, get pictures, autographs with all of the wrestlers on the show that night, and like I said, I went to their last show, and it was phenomenal. They get some great talent there, some of the best indie stars that you could ask for. And, it's for a good cause. The shows go to benefit Marian Catholic High School. So, that's icing on the cake right there. But, so if you're in Chicago or going to be in Chicago, in the Chicago area that weekend, it's Sunday, May 12th at noon is when the Fan Fest starts. So, go online at warriorwrestling.net to get your tickets. Tickets to the Fan Fest are $25, and general admission bleacher seats for the wrestling show start at $30. So, definitely very, very budget friendly. So, come on out, check it out. It should be a good time. Stop by, say hi. get some swag, and maybe have a little cameo on the show. Let me know what you think of the card and things like that. Just come on out, have some fun. So that's pretty much all I got for this week. Again, thank you to everybody for listening and subscribing on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you find your podcasts. And thank you for following on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. On all those platforms, it is at CatchHookShoot. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's catchhookshoot@gmail.com. So until next week, hope everybody has an awesome week. Hope everybody has had a good Easter or good holiday, whatever holiday you happen to celebrate this weekend. And so yeah, I will talk to you guys next week. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.